introduce our guest today. We have Jim Nejedly from Mount Diablo Recycling in California. And we have Diana Dalsin from right here in the Twin Cities with Bridging. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim. Thanks for being here.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Jim Nejedly. I work for Mount Diablo Resource Recovery, aka Mount Diablo Recycling, and we run the reuse program in central Contra Costa County, which is about a half hour out of San Francisco in California. And in case none of you knew where San Francisco was, and we've been running the program a little over 5 years now by contract. We also have a hauling and disposal company that does 5 cities and part of the county, but it is not part of this program. We contracted to do the reuse and the recyclable processing in that service area. Republic Services does the actual pickup of the green waste, recycling, and garbage. Again, a little over 5 years. I tried to look back to see exact time, but it's a 10-year contract, and our contract calls for 750 tons a year. The original program was 10 months of the year, but I did a bunch of rerouting and tried to streamline it as best I could. I saw some redundancy out there, and we whittled it down to 6 months a year, which every household gets 2 pickups per year, broken into those 2-3 month cycles. On any given month, we have about 20, I shouldn't say about because I have the exact number, but we have a little over 20,000 households that we go by each month. We have a 22.86, I have the exact numbers, but we have about a 23% put out percentage, which is pretty good. We collect, you name it, put it out. We do collect batteries on the routes as part of the program. We also pick up about 20 businesses throughout the 5 cities in the county. I'd mentioned our regular hauling company does 5 cities in the county, and the JPA, Recycle Smart, who we contract for, is also 5 cities and a good portion of Contra Costa County. Again, so it's about 23% put out, and we actually do it by the houses. Republic has a pretty good list of houses. We do not get individual houses from them, only the amount that's out there. And we actually built our own mapping system. We have a service area out there that's really tough, really old school, narrow streets to find houses. And it took me about 1.5 years to finally dial in our maps. I ended up building our own because we don't actually get route lists from them. We just have to cruise the streets, and there are a lot of streets out there that can be missed. So as a result, we kind of fine-tune all those maps. I think we got a pretty good system now. We have had, in 5 years, really, it's a pretty good accomplishment, 1 verifiable complaint that resulted in them not being really happy with us. So we have a very, very good track record on the routes. I live in this service area, so fortunately on my way home sometimes I can go by and deal with something or pick something up that gets left. Part of the program, if you want to switch to the next slide there, that'd be great. It'll show the list of what we pick up. I think any of you that are in the reuse world will see, there's a lot of things we pick up that unfortunately people, since Republic won't pick up on a regular service day as their cleanup, they put a couch out. I mentioned earlier that the dog's been living on for 2 years on the side of the garage in the rain, and they swear up and down that it's quote-unquote reusable. So anybody in this world knows that you deal with things like that every day. But this is a pretty comprehensive list. you know, again, you can go down at any questions, you know, towards the end if you want to put them on there. I'm happy to answer any questions. But we do a lot of electronics, kids furniture, regular furniture, you name it, we take it. We got a bar in the other day, and somebody actually called and had a safe, and I actually found a really good home for it, a big old bank safe that they had, and we picked it up. We're not afraid to kind of go after the not normal. We do a lot of books. One of the slides coming up, you'll see, and I'll mention as we get to it, but we pick up a lot of books, and St. Vincent de Paul, who takes the majority of our material in Oregon, which is about an 8-hour drive, they bring us semi-trailers, and we put a lot of material in them that we don't get rid of locally. And fortunately for us, their demographics aren't the same as ours. So fortunately for us, they can take a lot of material that we wouldn't normally be able to get rid of or easily get rid of here. Our contract calls for 750 tons a year, and last year we almost doubled that. So I know you numbers people can do the math on the tonnages that we're hand picking up, putting in 3 different trucks, and taking it off the trucks every day. It's 3 million pounds. And I have a really, really good crew of guys. It's one of the most important things is I run two-man trucks, driver and a helper, and they're fighting those maps and making sure they're safe out there and picking everything up. And we're using 16-foot, what I call bread trucks, but like a regular delivery style truck. And then one open truck, which is we call the metal truck, but that's for bulky items, refrigerator that works. We do pick up scrap metal, better that than going into the garbage truck the next day for the cleanups. And we break everything down in the warehouse. As you get down the slide, you'll see the warehouse that we use. We have, fortunately, somebody was saying they have warehouses that aren't very big. I've been pretty fortunate. It's pretty good size, but surprisingly enough, as hard as we run, the months that we run, it starts to creep in on you and gets loaded up. One of the most amazing things throughout this process is the bikes that we get. We get a lot of bikes, and between the sheriff's department and we have a local bike repair company, Waterside Bikes, they're a little hit and miss sometimes, but whether it's Christmas for the kids, Toys for Tots, we're always trying to find homes for those bikes, and it's just amazing how many we get in. Some of them are very, very nice, and some of them are, you know, just pretty much scrap. We bring in a lot of scrap metal, like I said. We get some aluminum, the old barbecue that, you know, people think can be reusable, but you can tell that it's cooked a couple of thousand steaks, and that's the end of that barbecue. CRTs, again, bikes, and we also have a local what they call it East Bay Depot for creative reuse. It's in Berkeley, which is about 20 minutes from us drive time, and they do a lot of, I'll say, eclectic stuff, you know, pots for the house and some artwork and, you know, things they use for their schools over there that they utilize, and they actually have a warehouse that they sell the material. They've been doing this a lot longer than we have. They were with the previous contractor. They dealt with him also, and so we actually, my foreman over at the warehouse, we get kind of a list, and they take stuff out and kind of pile it up for them, and they come by and they pretty much take everything they set out. And one thing I've noticed throughout this 5+ years of doing this is it's a constant moving target. We want to keep everything we can in our community, which we do, but I'm always open to ideas. You know, somebody will come in. My father-in-law, for example, found a place in Richmond, 30-minute drive from here, that, you know, they needed a bunch of clothes. So we concentrate on those types of clothes. We have supplied, as you probably all have heard, we've had some pretty bad fires out here over the last several years, and we save coolers, camping gear, chairs, and the like, tents, and you get their house burned down, and they're just, you know, they really, really enjoy it, and we've loaded up trucks and taken them up there. So those are really, really good opportunities, and we just hold things like that. until, for the use. As long as we got room in the warehouse, we'll ship it out. We do a lot with the local schools. We pick up their end of the school year materials, sort them out, and then we have, when they go back into school, they can come back in. We have teachers that come in, and you'd be surprised how many brand new pencils and Sharpies and binders and things that we actually, it's just, taking from one school essentially and handing it to the other. We also get a lot of sports equipment, golf. Our local high school takes that stuff. We have some people here at work that are coaches and things, and we have just a Gaylord box, which is a large cardboard box we put stuff into. And we collect cardboard on the route, same thing. If it's going to go in the trash, we can process it here at our plant. Our residual is about 15%, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. We get material back and it's a box full of books, but the bottom was all garbage, or, we'll have a piece of furniture that's a little rickety and we get it back and it breaks. I tell everybody that, I'm not Chipotle, I'm not a furniture repair guy. It'd be great if I could repair every armoire out there with a broken leg on it, but we get too much material and have to push it through. If you can go to the next slide, we can go through our warehouse. I'm a bit of a neat freak, as you can tell, but those shelves there are for our county assistant program. We have families that come in and that need, they're getting into a new house, or homeless people that finally got into an apartment, or whatever the case may be. So we try to keep the not higher end, but the coffee maker, you'd see some things there, almost a brand new microwave, bedding, you name it, things people that you could use for the house. There's a clock sitting there, and one of our gals here on site, she kind of runs that and has appointments, and we actually bring the families in and they pick things out. Next slide, please. That's all of the green boxes are all the e-waste. A lot of towers, computers, screens, you name it, we get it in. We've got a really good company locally that takes all that material. We do check everything that we can. TVs, monitors, somebody put out a brand new Apple monitor, and we have a gentleman that comes in that goes through a lot of it. A lot of it's just outdated or broken, or there's no more use for it. But we do find homes, surprisingly enough, for it. And he'll take all the laptops and he goes through them and cleans them up and does that. And it's a local guy that is disabled, but he's very, very good at it. So that's a really good program there. And the other containers over on the back side, you can see I think there's a scooter in one of them, but we'll do the school material, balls. My wife's a manager at an elementary school, and so she gets first choice and gets all of the school balls they can kick around there. So I got a question here. What are the outlets for clothing? Clothing's all over the place. Again, hit and miss. We do homeless bedding and jacket drives. We took a lot of clothes up to the fire victims. The county will come in and get a lot of clothes. We actually go through them and separate them into different Gaylords by age and gender, and it's hit and miss. And then my great fallback, I can't give them enough credit at St. Vincent de Paul, is I do have to keep the warehouse reasonably down in inventory, and what we can't use they take, and in 5 years I've never had a complaint from them. We don't send them junk, but they do take a lot of material from us, which really helps, and it's been a very, very good partnership. Next slide, please. It's just kind of the same thing there. Those are just bins we use for clothes. We'll just pile them all up, and then our off season, which is those every other 3 months, we'll go through them and sort them out. Next slide, please. There you go. There's, believe it or not, those are books, and we get a lot of books. It's like I think the garages are going to be cleaned out, but they're not. And we ship those to St. Vincent. We had another outlet here locally, but they went out of business. It was a really good partnership again, I go back. Our main focus, we really try to keep it everything we can local. We'll deliver, we'll bring families in, but there's a lot of books there. We're getting ready for a shipment, and we'll actually fill a whole semi-trailer. And St. Vincent has their own little bookstore and their vault where they actually go through all these books. There's some pretty valuable books in there. I got the app for it, and we were going to start doing it, but we pay a living wage. It's kind of hard to pay somebody to sit there and go through books, but I'm sure there's a couple of gold trinkets in there. But it's great to have that outlet, and they're not going in there recycling. They actually reuse the majority of those books. Next slide, please. Furniture, anybody sees it, we get some pretty good stuff. I don't know who bought that chair there in the bottom, but they must have thought it was pretty cool looking. I saved those couches on the top right there just for fun. They look like they're from the Queen of England's backyard. But we get a lot of it, and we hold it, and we have people not only just on the county and other areas, but we actually do give some here to our employees. We have some people that I had a gal that got a divorce and was living in an apartment with nothing, and we pretty much outfitted her whole place for her. So it's really nice to be able to do things for that, here locally. Next slide. That's another, just the same furniture, and I think there's one more slide in there. Go to the next one. Yeah, yeah, that was the last one. So one slide that didn't get in was we had the shelving full of coolers and things, and I run a camp for disabled kids. We have a bin that, we put all this camping gear in, and I kind of go through it and take it up for their kids, and just a lot of coolers, a lot of new coolers, and I found that keeping them really helps for the emergencies, not with the COVID, but, the fires or floods or heavy rain we can load those up real quick. We keep them clean and ready to go. We also do the batteries. We pick up about 700 pounds of batteries every Friday with 20 stores. It's amazing the generation of batteries. We're keeping them out of the landfill. And we also pick up 3 libraries of books that helps that book inventory. Again, it's amazing how many books are coming out of those places. So I think that's pretty much my story, and I'm going to stick with it. Any questions?
Great. Yes, we have several questions, Jim. I'm only going to ask 2 questions right now, and then we'll save more questions after Diana has presented. And I forgot to mention, but you've figured it out, most of you. You can ask questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, move your mouse over the Zoom screen, and you should see Q&A at the bottom. You can ask questions there, or you can ask it through the chat function. And I'm collecting all the questions, and I'll ask the speakers. So the first 2 questions we have, and even if we don't get to all of them, we'll make sure to get back to you afterwards. One is, how do you ask people to set out for these for reuse? Are they to be labeled? Is reuse day the same day as the garbage day? So logistics there, Jim.
Yeah, good question. We send out a flyer every month that covers not only our reuse day, but Republic's cleanup day. One thing they didn't do when I first started this was it was all over the board. I think I mentioned it early on that a reuse day would be Monday, cleanup would be Tuesday, then the regular service day would be Thursday. And it just didn't make any sense to me. So the way it is now is reuse day is, if your service day is Wednesday, reuse day would be Tuesday, then cleanup is Wednesday on your regular service day. And ever since we went to that, it's been crazy smooth, because anything that we leave out there, except for the funky couch the dog's been living on, they'll pretty much pick up everything that we leave. And we've actually got, I hate to use this word, but train the customers that one side of the driveway is reuse, one on the side is cleanup. But once we're out of there the day before, Republic goes through there and they pick up everything they can, as long as it's within their list of items they pick up. So it's mainly by the mailer. We actually do a mailer that goes out to each customer.
Great, yes. And if you want to see that mailer, if you just Google Reuse Day Smart, or what, now I'm just
Recycle Smart.
Recycle Smart, thank you. Yes. It'll be one of the first things that pops up. It's a very nice flyer. Okay, and the next question before we move on is a disparity again, or in the yes/no list that we saw on the first slide. So it said under the yes list, yes, miscellaneous batteries, including car batteries, but then in the no list, it said car batteries. Are there any caveats as to which car batteries you accept during these twice-a-year pickups?
It's funny. As long as we've been doing this, we're still, fine-tuning this list because
of course.
We find that, if a car battery's sitting on the ditch, we have a lot of areas that are not curbed, and if it's sitting in the ditch, I have my guys get it because a lot of times they're going to leave it out there. It's going to tip over. You don't want that acid out there. So, but as far as household batteries, we pick up, but we don't get a lot of car batteries. But when they are, we just pick them up. We have an outlet here. We have our own trucking company, and so we have an outlet to get rid of them. So we do grab them.
Wonderful. And I think we have time for one more before we move over to Diana. Let's see. Do you keep track of what your buyers, recyclers, and reusers do with the items? Like what percentage is recycled versus reused after you?
Yeah, if it leaves our facility, it's virtually 100%. We don't just give them a whole pile of stuff. So again, St. Vincent gets a lot of it, but they may be throwing a small percentage out. But we weed through it before it goes anywhere. That's why, we're running a 15+% residual. We know what's good and what's bad by the time we get it back, and it's kind of a little bit hit and miss, but it's for all practical purposes, it's getting reused. We have really good homes. We've got it pretty well dialed in.
Great, thank you. Okay, I do have some more questions, but I'll wait for those, and you can still ask questions throughout the talk, even if it's for Jim. You can ask them through the Q&A or the chat function. And now we'll move on to Diana. Many of you have probably met Diana if you've ever done a tour of Bridging. Diana is the Community Relations Manager of Bridging, and she's going to tell us about how they've incorporated reuse at some of the drop-off city cleanup events. Over to you, Diana.
Great, thank you so much. Glad to be here today. Although for us, as we all know right now, we're in that pause button, which is real hard. Bridging is a nonprofit, 501c3 here in the Twin Cities and the state of Minnesota. But 95% of who we serve is in the Twin Cities. We're expanding a little bit further out state right now. But right now, we're not emergency assistance, but we're like one teeny tiny step outside of that. So last week we made the decision to close to the public, which means everything from donation intake, serving clients, and volunteer programs. So talk about kind of a holding pattern, and we know that people need this. So I was very excited to jump on this call today and be part of this, because for us and the work we do as a furniture bank, which I'll get into just to clarify, is that we need the product, number one. Without inventory, we're out of business. So on this front slide here, what you're looking at, our values are really important to us. I just want to call out the gentleman on the left with the white hat, our dear founder, Fran Heitzman. He unfortunately passed away January 11th. He was only 2 months away from turning 95 years old, and he was still in 6 days a week. So this is really near and dear to our heart, serving the population and getting the good reuse items to those that need it. So next slide. What we are, and as we look at this, so Bridging located in the Twin Cities, we've got a location in Bloomington, another in Roseville. We operate currently out of over 50,000 square feet. We actually purchased a new warehouse in 2015 on the east side of the river. As we know, it divides the Twin Cities, but we've always served the Twin City Metro. When we expanded across that river, We bought we moved in 10 years prior. We actually bought the facility across the street, moved across the street, and purchased 71,000 square feet. So we have room to grow. We have 26,000 square feet in Bloomington, and it is constantly churning. So even when we tried for one day last week to do a part of programs, but not all of programs, we are so cyclical, and the churning that has to happen every day, that when one piece of that puzzle stops, it was amazing to see how quickly in 24 hours the system gets disrupted. So our mission is really to empower those folks to thrive in their homes, giving them that quality furniture and household goods so they can have that stable housing. Again, we're that one step outside of emergency assistance, the shelters, the food banks. As a furniture bank, we're one of about 80 in the country. So if anyone wanted to look up the National Furniture Bank Association, we're part of that. And we are probably the largest, if not one of the top 3, the volume of which we provide to families, and a number of families and people we serve on an annual basis. So we are truly passing on good usable items so that they don't have to worry about getting all that. That picture on the right with the home setup, that is what an average household of 4 walks away with. So we'll get into the details, but to give you a visual of what is that, that's what we're talking about. Furniture, household goods, dishes, silverware, linens, upholstery items, mattresses, and we'll get into the nooks and crannies. Next slide. What we've done in we're in our 33rd year now as a nonprofit. Fran started this in '87. We are providing, where the name comes from, those who have to those who have not. So what really started as a reuse, and people didn't use that word back in '87. We talked recycling first, but where we've truly excelled in the last 5 to 10 years and really focused our efforts is in the reuse arena. So it's not about give me your trash, and we'll get into that because trash is trash. I don't need someone to give me the things that are no good. Even right now, we're still spending $500 a month on trash. That is putting many things into different reuse streams instead of paying on waste. But that has not always been the case. You know, as an early nonprofit back in the 80s and 90s, Fran would say yes to anything and everything. Even in our history, we took clothing, we took food, we took books, we took toys. And what we did is finally say, we love that. There's other places who do that. We're not going to be in that business. So what we've done in particular in the last 10 years is narrowed our focus, our list of items to accept. And I encourage you to go to bridging.org to check out our full list. Also on our homepage is a great 101 video if you want to see more great pictures of what we look like and how we operate. The list of what we're taking, we've narrowed, so it's very particular about what we want. We are about giving the things to the family that they need. They shop in 1 hour, they walk through our warehouse, and what we've done since '87 is set up 95,000 households. We're actually going to hit, well, prior to the current state of affairs, we were planning on hitting 100,000 households this August or so. That means that's about 300 people a week. We help 100 households right now currently as we hit the pause button. That's what we were doing. So if you look at the next slide, before we get to some other numbers and what we're really talking about today, what's interesting about us is our model is really based on volunteers. So when I said last week we turned off the faucet, remember this, 5,000 volunteers a year help us out. We actually have about 800 individual volunteers who come in once a week, once a month, students for the summer, who are really keeping us operating. In our 2 buildings 6 days a week, we actually employ only 35 paid staff, and those are 10-hour days sometimes. Our volunteers provide the workforce to operate. So we quickly and understood, and as we restart here in the coming weeks, we hope, unfortunately, we're going to only start with staff and start small because we also have to be cognizant of what arena and what environment we want to put those volunteers back into. We run with volunteers, donated goods, and most importantly, how clients get invited to us and get the appointments is we have 200 social service agencies, which is over 1,500 caseworkers. They identify the family. They're the ones who then make sure that there's an appointment set. They come in, they shop in 1 hour, and then they're out the door. So we're impacting 13,000 individuals a year. We speak of it, families, as warm and fuzzy, but it's really about households. And when we get into that, it's about a dignified shopping trip. Things are ready to go. We have shopping volunteers, office staff. We have a wood shop that's making sure everything that goes out is in safe, good condition. All the electrical items are tested, inspected, and ready to go. Safe, clean, good working condition. Yes, if something comes to our dock door as a drop-off, which about 60% of what we give away comes right to our dock doors all week long. There is a home pickup program, which we'll touch on here in a second as well. But we are happy to say no thank you to someone if it's clearly not working. We're testing things at the dock doors like a microwave, because if it's leaking and it's not safe for us to bring in the building and we're not going to be able to inspect it, I'm not about to take that in to throw it away, because as a nonprofit, our budget is $3 million a year. I don't want to take valuable dollars and spend it on trash. So the model is important for us. Our commitment to what we're going to do with our families by providing them that basic setup is important. So that in the next slide, you can see last year alone, that's over 4,500 households, families, 13,000 people, most of which are kids. 49% were under 17. When someone says to me, why do you do what you do? And how do you know you need it? Most families walk through our doors, they're earning less than $20,000 a year for their annual income. Number one, there needs to be the housing. We're saying, let's get that good usable stuff into the hands that need it. If I only have 20,000, do I want someone to have to worry about buying sheets and dishes and a couch, or do I want them making sure they can pay for a roof over the head, insurance, transportation, clothing, all this other stuff? It is roughly 14 semi-loads in and 14 semi-loads out every week. That's the volume of product we're touching. It's an $1,800 value that we give to each of our families. That's pretty consistent for the last 3 years. Like I said, we do it all with volunteers. So that thrift value, we use those standard rates that are out there. We know some things are brand new. We accept that as well. But we're also making sure that what we're giving to our families is consistent. From building to building, we make sure no matter if you shop today, tomorrow, next October, in January, in Bloomington, in Roseville, we make sure that they're going to get everything they need, and that we have leveled our inventory so that the inventory selection and volume is the same in either warehouse. All right, I wanted to give you a little basis as to what we are that way. All right, why we're here today, and a little bit more, is we're taking in that stuff. Like I said, number one, we need inventory. We say gently used, new furniture and household items. Yes, we consider ourselves a leader in reuse, and the difference there, I say, is because we are estimating it's 11 million pounds saved from the landfill every year. We know every family receives, on average, 500 cubic feet of items. So to give you a little perspective, when we load up client deliveries, which right now about 75% of the families, they shop through the warehouse. Some of them then get a delivery appointment. We load it up. Generally, 3 households of product goes on one 26-foot truck. So that when we talk inventory, 70% comes from our home donors. We still have some really amazing corporate and institutional donors, hotels, hospitality industry, senior move managers, moving companies, that's another 30%. So any way we can get our hands on good inventory, we will. We always encourage folks to drop off for free. I talked about that's over 50% of what comes in. People can pull up and we'll say, great, lovely, this looks great, or no thank you. We have a donor resource list that we share. It's also on our website. For the Twin Cities area, we update at least once a year saying, I'm sorry, I don't take bikes, here's who does. I'm sorry, I don't take clothes, here's who does. We also started 10 years ago a fee-based pickup program. We still have a fleet of vehicles, semis, 26-foot trucks, 16-foot box trucks, but we 10 years ago couldn't afford them anymore. When we went through our last economic turn in 2010, our trucks were failing, they needed to be replaced. We either had to kill the program or change it, and at that point we started charging for the fee-based pickup. $75, we go to the garage, like this picture shows. We pull up, our staff and volunteers load up, leave a receipt. They can book online or call us up, And then we also do an in-home, like my parents just did 2 months ago. They stood at the door. They said, hey, bridging, come on in. The bed's in the bedroom, the dresser's there, the boxes are downstairs, the couch is over here. And in we go and out we go for $180. So 75 to the garage, 180 to go inside, and that pays for that fleet. That's what that's covering. So we can get out, insure, gas, and maintain. All right, so the next slide is community drives, which is how we really work with counties. I want to pause for a minute about the nature of our work and how we do it before I jump deeper into how we really partner with municipalities and the counties. Is there a question we want to pull out right now? Let's see.
Yes, I can give you a question. Does bridging partner with other local orgs that may have specific missions for other items?
Yes,
like,
we sure do.
Building materials. Okay.
Yes, so that's where I say that donor resource list is important. So when Fran, our founder, started this, there was clothing, food, and books and toys. Right now, that donor resource list is a great example. Work one, animal shelters, great example. Blankets that do not pass our test, we are collecting, and then we're bagging those and giving those to area and statewide animal shelters. So we're not paying on trash, and that's going into another stream. Bad fabric goes into a fabric recycling program with Salvation Army right now. We send off, if the books and the clothing sneaks in a box or a bag, we're also, if it's good and usable, still passing that on to another local nonprofit thrift store in that respect. So we've done Goodwill in the past, we've done Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, kind of based on their needs and what we have, that kind of has rotated from year to year. The partnerships are also really great. Someone like Slumberland in town, a local retailer, they're a great example of someone who's partnered with us for 25 years. You buy a new bed with them, they take away the old one. The ones that are in good shape we get. So since we don't need a full set and we take all sizes, boxes or mattresses, what happens then is their trucks and their delivery teams, we take time to train all of their 60 drivers, get them connected to our mission and our quality. And 3 times a week, we are driving to their Little Canada distribution center, and beds are waiting for us to look at. If it doesn't pass the test, they have a shredder and they're taking care of disposal. We've had an opportunity then, though, to go in there, take what's good, and bring it back to our warehouse. So that partnership is critical. We have some similar relationships with other retailers in town, whether it's furniture, whether it's beds, Sleep Number, Select Comfort. The hotel that calls and says, I've got 10 floors, we're remodeling, come and get it. That's the kind of stuff we're working with on a regular basis. Well, let me dive in here and then we'll get to some more questions. When I got this question about, do you want to join in and talk about this? We used to call these product drives. This is where back in the 90s, we would park a semi out in the community. And this is before we were big enough that we could be selective, but purposely selective. A product drive is where we park that truck, and generally our founder, Fran, had these great Lions and Rotary clubs and churches that would host a semi on a Saturday, and they'd throw stuff in there. Well, it was really great early in the day because we were truly trying to stock our shelves, and we capitalized on the spring and fall seasonalities of people cleaning out. So in the height of this, we were placing over 30 semis and our 26-foot trucks around the Twin Cities, collecting the full list of what we took during a, say, 4 or 5 hour event. So whether it was a city-sponsored event, a church event, civic club, there was a wide variety. I was lucky enough to become what I called the proud mama of this event coordination in 2011. And in those first couple of years, I started tracking how much resource we were spending, what we were getting off of these events, and how much trash bill we were spending. Once that became a reality, it was everything I needed to put an end to placing 30 semis on a set in the springtime in like about a 6-week period. It was too much for us operationally. It was only perpetuating the fact that people would think of us only once a year. So we've then taken that time to pull away from hosting these drives. I currently only do 4. And they're pretty much because those 4 partners are folks who've been doing this with us for 20 years, and they've been incredible partners, and they know what they're doing. It's about, those days are focused on both reuse and recycle. I'll give you an example of one that works still, which is why we're not stopping it. The city of Savage has a great 1-day spring cleanup day. We work and partner, that's the picture actually down on the bottom. The football team from the high school comes out, the Savage Rotarians are the host. They've been trained on what we take. And for that 4-hour period, residents pull up, they check in, we're the first stop. All the good usable items that they have that we accept go on the truck, then they continue down the line to the metal recycling, the appliance recycling, the tires, you name it. That's the exception to the rule. That is one that works and is not broken. We have one other city that works well, but not quite as well as that. They're great, but they're not so great that I've stuck with it. What I took time for the last 5 years in particular was to start peeling things away. I stopped because it was no longer focused. The trash bills continued to grow. And many of our partners weren't remembering what we wanted or not. So things kept going on the truck that we didn't want. So we had a pretty big operational impact once that semi got pulled to us. Now we own trailers, we do not own tractors. So we also partner with Wiseway, who moves our semis around for us, and which is fantastic, but that's also another in-kind donation. And we wanted to make sure that they could still be our partner and not overwhelm them. What we've done as we stopped community drives is we've expanded in other ways. So let me give you the example. One of our great faith partners in town in Eagan was a church, St. John Newman, and they were hosting the product drives for over 10 years. We had the same great coordinator. And as we were starting to pull away from these, I said, Amy, here's the deal. I love that you do this, but you call me 6 months in advance and ask me to book a date because your parishioners want you to host this and they want to know what date the drive is. And I said, do you hear what they're saying? They're saying they have stuff for me and they're willing to hold on to it for 6 months. I said, I can't do that. I need their stuff now. And that's very hard for us to hear in first quarter in Minnesota when it's snowy and cold. And currently still, like 70% of what we give away is home donors. So if the home donors aren't giving me their stuff, I'm in trouble. So we have worked very hard. We've actually made it 3 winters without pulling down on our client services numbers because we had enough inventory. As I stopped community drives, we've been able to actually serve our clients better 12 months of the year. We've also been able to say to our great Rotarians, our churches, our partners, you don't have to just do a community drive. I want you to come in and volunteer for a day. I want you to bring us out for a speaking engagement so everyone really understands who we are and what we need 52 weeks of the year, 365 days of the year. Our client need is all year round. We needed to be more forceful in the message that I love that you're thinking of us, but once a year is not enough. So please expand your thought process and get your stuff to us if it's 1 bag in 1 box this month, and next month a piece of furniture, and the month after that a lamp. Then we're getting more and we're serving our families better. We have much more engaged partners. They don't think of us just once a year, they're thinking of us multiple times a year. The other thing that this has done is really given me an opportunity and bridging an opportunity to truly customize to every partner. The best thing I've learned in my years of hosting these and working with our great community is that just like every volunteer and client has a particular need and we want to customize, every county and every city, when it comes to recycle and reuse, there is no one master fit. I feel like, yes, there's a handful of good best practices, but the best thing I can do with any one of our cities and our counties is to have a one-on-one conversation about what they need and how we're going to best meet their needs of the residents of that city. And that has been the most amazing part of what this has done. Instead of us just accommodating into a reuse recycle day or a cleanup day in the spring, we're having the right conversation at the right time. So for example, a city of Columbia Heights here, a smaller town, they reached out, they've been part of our tours, they've connected as a county and as a city. And then what they do is he has a resource list on his city website for all the residents. We're part of that resource list to the residents. Other cities put us in as a video. Maple Grove did a great video highlight on us. They put us in their, we come speak to the solid waste departments. We come talk to city officials. We get on their social media. We get in those great newsletters that get sent out to residents. We get on their websites. Prior to me saying not this, but this, the world has opened up tremendously. It has been the best thing we've ever done. And so that's why we've continued on that path. But again, every city is a little bit different. And so that's why I know there's not one brochure I'm going to put together that says this is how it has to work. We've got a great city that's a little farther away from our Roseville site. He met us when I met with the county of Anoka. It was fantastic. And he says, we're a smaller town. I really don't have a need to partner with you once a week, maybe not even once a month, but I've got a big giant pole barn. So here's the deal. Can I just call you when I've got a whole truckload of stuff for you? That is perfect for us. He reaches out to our operations team. He says what he has. We schedule a truck. We come on out about once a month. He said, he said about every 6 weeks, I asked our operations manager. And it works because that manager at the city knows what we want, knows our quality. If our truck pulls up and we take 95% of it, that city manager is also still willing to still toss out the stuff we've declined. That is really partnership at its best. That was a fit for him, a fit for us. It doesn't fit into the big master plan. Outside of the master plan is serve our families well, get 14 semi-loads of stuff in every week so we can serve them and pass that on. So the next slide is really just my contact information, but I wanted to open it up for some questions again.
Great. Thank you so much, Diana. Wonderful work. Always inspiring. We do have a few questions. I'll do some bridging questions, and I have a few Jim questions that we have too. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this one I got actually kind of a few different ways, a few different times. What are some opportunities and challenges with everyone staying home right now and possibly going through their stuff with the time on their hands and being stuck inside? How will agencies handle a possible influx of materials?
Yeah, so good news is we're built for that when we we operate out of the over 50,000 square feet. We're looking forward to that. Now, our message right now is encouraging folks to take the time to identify what they have and set it aside, and reminding them how they can get it to us, right? So we will ramp up as hard and fast as we can, because without inventory, we're out of business. So our message is, hey, don't forget about us. Take advantage of this moment. Just like last year, we anecdotally saw an impact with Marie Kondo. And so I think this is the same situation. Do I have reservation and pause that, yes, they're going to throw good usable stuff away? I do, but not like I would have 5 and 10 years ago. I truly, 5 and 10 years ago, people would take a tour and say, oh my gosh, I just threw good cookware away. Like, we know people are ready for this. The reuse is in such a different space. And our fans, we have got a very loyal following internally and on social media, that people keep saying, hold on, the word dignity about what we provide. Trash is trash, get it out. Start setting things aside for the moment the families are ready to be served. And so for us, it's real important now that they're starting to set that stuff aside. I think it's happening. We've heard it anecdotally, and our messaging is shifting to that.
Okay, and another question. Do you ever see the products come back to you after maybe the people you give them to are done with them? Do you ever see that coming back to you?
We do. That is one of the best things. I wish I could have spent my time talking about our lives we touch. I want to encourage you to check that out. One of the things is we get those notices. People will call in saying, hey, I'm moving out of town. I was a bridging client 10 years ago. I'd like to donate it back. I'm done with it. It's still good and usable. Prior to our current dresser building system, we used to build dressers from scratch, and they used to be a very particular looking MDF dresser, and it was tagged on the back when we built it and with what date. So whenever I saw one of those come back in, I loved it because we knew exactly how long ago that was built, how good it withstood test of time, and it was going back out to another client. So we sure do see those things come back in and then go back out.
That's very cool. Shows the quality of materials count.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have right now, and people are typing in things, so please feel free to type in more questions. I'll move back to Jim then and ask a few questions. Okay, so Jim, do you have contracts with all the various organizations who take materials from you, or how were they able to get around that if there are more than one organization who is interested in the materials? We might have answered that a little bit. Maybe it's more of a logistics. Do you have like an actual contract, or is it just a loose partnership?
No, it's always been a loose partnership. It's a hit and miss only in that locally it's changing all the time, whether it's a sheriff's department with bikes or like I'd mentioned, my father-in-law found an outfit in Richmond that needed some clothes. That's all. We're always proactively looking. People come in, we find another avenue. We don't with St. Vincent. It's been a long-standing thing where I'm a little old school. The handshake's pretty good because you never know when they fall off or something happens. You can't force them to take it. But it's like you said, for a better choice of words, a loose partnership. But it's served us very well.
Great. Okay, speaking of clothes. Oh, go ahead, Diane.
I'm sorry. I see a question up here that I kind of touched on, but I don't want to miss out on answering. Building materials and creative reuse. This is where I love when it happens, plain and simple. A hotel in particular. Think of the table in the corner in the old days with the phone, the guest book, and the lamp on it. It's not really a kitchen table because there's 3 supports and only one side open, so it can't be used as a kitchen table. We love when a hotel has those still and gives us, say, 200 of them. What we do is cut them down into mini coffee tables. They fly out the door. It's a wonderful way to get that out. We have other reuse communities. 3M has a sustainability, reclamation center. They called us up and said, we have all these 2x4s. We have sitting around in pallets. Do you mind if we design a coffee table and build some for you and stain them? Sure thing. So they had an engineer that then did the CAD drawing, and then they actually had a big, large volunteer event on campus where they then took all the parts and pieces, assembled, painted, and donated about 200 coffee tables to us. So we are open to those conversations because you never know what's sitting out there, which really we just don't have enough. Then it becomes customized to the right size. We love working with a big retailer, but we can't take in a big, all giant kitchen tables for a family of 7 who lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. So we often take those giant tables and actually cut them down into 2 kitchen tables. We build 4x4 kitchen legs, and we actually reconstruct brand new tables for a family of 4.
Very cool. Wonderful. I can only imagine how happy engineers were to be able to be creative that way too. Okay, Jim, another question for you. I noticed mattresses are not allowed for the reuse day. Do you know if there's a recycling service in your area for those?
Yeah, I did type a response in there, as brief as it was.
Yeah.
We do not pick them up. We're not allowed to reuse mattresses out here, but we do have a recycler locally that through our transfer station too. We do collect all mattresses that come in. They go into a semi-trailer and they actually break them down. It's pretty slick what they do and get all the parts and wood and metal out of them. And I know St. Vincent de Paul up north, we don't ship any there, but they break them down and they actually make new kind of a lower end mattress out of them.
Wonderful. Okay, and then clothing, so one of our last webinars was all about updates on the textile industry, and how it's kind of falling apart with not a lot of international outlets taking them, or ones that we thought were good or not so good. So we have a question about clothing outlets. Have your clothing outlets been verified? Wondering what anyone is doing with underwear, which many foreign markets specifically ban. Do you want to touch on that, Jim?
You want me to answer that?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
It's interesting, if we get brand new underwear, which we do, but, it's like a mattress. I'm not going to hand out somebody's used underwear. But we do get brand new stuff that, it's folded. I remember I've got my foreman sitting here with me, and we got I want to say a whole Gaylord container full of, it was like Lululemon. That's scary. I even know what that is. Knockoffs. But they were all brand new with tags, so we found a home for them.
Great. And have you, I imagine that you are giving most of the clothes to St. Vincent de Paul. Do you have any conversations with them of exactly where their clothes are ending up?
Yeah, we don't ship them a ton. A lot of our clothing gets sent out here locally, homeless, county, schools, especially with sports gear and things. But what we do send up north, it's going to the Eugene area in Oregon. Is, again, I said it earlier, but a little bit different demographic, and we get a lot of super nice clothes. So, it's well worn up there.
Okay. And then I think the last question I see for now is, how many people, this is for Jim, how many people are employed at your company? Can you share how much the contract is with the Solid Waste Authority?
I don't know if I can share. It's probably public information, but we have 8 employees, 9 with our battery recycle. I actually have a full-time battery guy. He sorts batteries every day. We get, like I said, about 700 pounds a week. And we have 6 guys on the routes, 3 trucks. We run 2-man trucks. Seems to work really well. 2 guys in the warehouse, 1 being a foreman, kind of sorts things and keeps everything organized. And it's a 10-year contract, and it's paid by the month, and it's I don't know that we're getting rich off it, but it's a pretty good deal.
Okay, great. And if you, Alicia, I see that you asked that. If you are curious about or want specific contract information, I'm in contact with the county people, so we can figure out what information we can share through that too. I can connect you. Okay, well, we are at time at 12:30. I want to thank our speakers so much, Jim and Diana. Thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and it gave us something to look forward to when we're able to serve our communities again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
no problem.
Thank you. And we did record the session, and we put all of our recordings on our Minnesota or the Reuse website, reusemn.org, under webinars. So if you know someone who should have been listening but weren't, you can share that link. It's usually up within a week. And you can always follow up with questions if you